Welcome to the presentation on types of governments. While you watch the video, you need to make sure that your chart is complete by the end. There are two main types of governments: democratic or limited, and authoritarian, which is unlimited. What I mean is that in a democratic government, the government has limited power. These would be constitutional monarchy, direct and representative democracy. Authoritarian means the government has total power. This would be an absolute monarchy and a dictatorship. It's important to know the difference between these types of governments. In a direct democracy, people govern themselves by voting on issues directly and individually as citizens. An example of this in history would be the city-states of Athens in Greece that you learned about last year. A modern-day example would be parts of Switzerland. Do you know where Switzerland is in the world? Switzerland is in Europe. It's a very teeny tiny country between Italy, Germany, Austria, and France. The disadvantages of direct democracy is that people need to be interested and actively involved in the government. And some people may not take the time to understand complex policies. This type of government works in small communities, but not modern nations like the USA. Another example would be towns in New England, which is a region in the USA. The type of government that we have in the USA is a representative democracy. In this type of government, the people vote for representatives. These are our members of Congress and our president. This gives representatives the responsibility and power to make laws and run the government. By voting, the people, which is us, we give the power to the representatives. These people represent our interests in government. Here are some examples of countries that have representative democracy. The USA, like I said, France, and Russia. Do you know what continent each of these countries are on? If you guessed North America for the USA and Europe for France and Russia, you're correct. Good job. Here's the problems with a representative democracy. You have a lack of concern on the part of voters, or it's also called voter apathy. Only 61% of eligible people voted in the 2008 presidential elections. Some countries like Australia have made voting mandatory, which means you must vote or you'll be charged a fine. In the US, we have a two-party system. They are the Democrats and Republicans. The last type of limited government is constitutional monarchy. This is where a monarch inherits the right to rule, but they're limited by a lawmaking body, which is elected by the people. The monarch has a ceremonial role in representing the government. They're figureheads, but they're limited by the Constitution. Here are some examples: the UK, Sweden, Spain, and Japan. Below are pictures of each of the monarchs of these countries. Do you know who these people are? Now, let's move on to unlimited governments. The first is an absolute monarchy. This is where a monarch inherits their position from their father or mother. They have complete and unlimited and unchecked power. They usually claim that they've been chosen by God to rule. Historically, an example would be Louis XIV of France. A current one would be King Abdullah from Saudi Arabia. Here's a picture of old Louis XIV from France. And this is King Abdullah in Saudi Arabia. The other type of unlimited government is a dictatorship. This is where a single leader holds extraordinary power that is not based on heredity or passed down through the family. A dictator makes all laws and suppresses or puts down opposition. An example would be Fidel Castro in Cuba, Adolf Hitler in Germany, Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, Saddam Hussein in Iraq. Here's Fidel Castro from Cuba. Do you know who this famous dictator is? If you do, call him out now. If you said Adolf Hitler, you're correct, the dictator of Germany during World War II. If you know who this famous dictator is, call him out now. If you said Saddam Hussein, the former dictator of Iraq, you are correct. To the right is a list of leaders in the world who call themselves presidents or kings, but in all actuality, they are dictators. Number 1 is Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe. Take a look at the list. Do you know any of these leaders, or have you heard of any of them? This concludes the presentation on governments for Chapter 3. Take a look at your chart. Is it complete? If not, complete it now.